Welcome back to another video on the JJ Think Tank. It's a lovely day today here in Poznań in Poland. And yes, the sun is shining. I can hear the birds chirping through my window. And yes, it's lovely. It's lovely that springtime is here, and obviously every spring we feel more rejuvenated. It's the start of a new season of new life. Everything starts budding and everything starts coming to life again. But I won't be talking about the spring. I won't be talking about springtime today. Today I want to talk about the idiot brain. So I read this book. I've completed it the other day. Here it is. The Idiot Brain by Dean Burnett. And I came across it as I was waiting for my flight from London. I was in W.H. Smith, and I looked at it and I thought, okay, this book looks interesting to me, because as we can see here, it's got a picture of a man, and he's leading, well, the brain is leading him by the string here, or by the dog lead. We can look at this as a dog lead, yes. So I've actually got a dog. I've got a Beagle, and everyone who has a Beagle knows that they lead the walk. Really, you can't really control a Beagle. The walk is finished until the investigation is complete. This is a kind of funny saying that we talk about, that we use when talking about the Beagle, yes, because obviously Beagles, they like to sniff everything, they like it to investigate, to find out new smells, to find a hidden trail perhaps, or something like this. And so yes, this thought came to my mind, and I thought, okay, and then I like the title, The Idiot Brain, why your brain gets things wrong and why that's all right. So obviously throughout my life, and I guess everyone, we all make mistakes, we all regret doing things, we are led down the wrong path, we fall into traps, both emotional traps, mental traps, intellectual traps, and as this process occurs, perhaps we don't realise that we are making a mistake. Sometimes we do realise straight away, or even at the time. Sometimes we don't, and we only realise we made a mistake many years later. Yes, and this is why in hindsight, obviously, everything makes sense. Yes, we always have to be patient and trust the process, and understand that in the future, the path that we took will make sense for us. And kind of this thought of mine reminds me of Kierkegaard's quote, Kierkegaard's famous saying that life must be lived forwards, but it can only be understood backwards. And I think this is a brilliant aphorism. We could call it an aphorism, I guess. It's a brilliant truism, because it's able to boil down life to one statement, yes? And so, having read this book, The Idiot Brain, I had so many revelations as I was reading it, and having read it, I came to a new understanding of myself, to a new understanding of the brain. I picked up a few new perspectives when it comes to neuroscience. And in general, the book had a lot of brilliant bits of information that I would like to share with you here today. Because obviously not all of us have time to read books. Everyone has their own hobbies. My hobby is reading books when I have free time, and because I read it, obviously I want to share what I have here with you. So the quote here by Dean Burnett is brilliant, and it goes like so: if the human brain were so simple that we could understand it, we would be so simple that we couldn't. So I'll repeat it again. If the human brain were so simple that we could understand it, we would be so simple that we couldn't. This is a brilliant little thought, little kind of not paradox, but a kind of there's a turn in this thought, isn't there? If the human brain was so simple, there would be no mystery, yes, and everything would have been solved by now. There would be nothing to discuss. There would be no conflict. There would be no arguments. There would be no philosophy. There would be nothing. I guess we can think of this statement in this way. Of course, there are many other ways we can interpret this statement, this thought by Dean Burnett, but this is kind of my interpretation. And the deeper we go into any issue, the more we think about anything, the more beautiful and mysterious life becomes. Nothing is so clear cut as we think. Nothing really. God is mysterious. The universe is very mysterious. Quantum mechanics is very mysterious. I mean, I have no clue about quantum mechanics. I'm not a physicist. My domain is philosophy, history, politics, economics, social sciences, yes, humanities, art, literature. So I focus on these areas because this is where I feel more confident in expressing my views and sharing my ideas, yes. But famous physicists, yes, when they talk about quantum mechanics, they say that if a physicist has understood quantum mechanics, it means that he actually hasn't understood quantum mechanics because it's so weird. And it's mad, life is mad, it's crazy, and as you get older, you notice how beautiful life is and how bittersweet and tragic it is at the same time. But anyway, I know I went on another tangent, but I've just got so many thoughts pop up into my mind as I'm doing this. But yes, let's go into my article now, and I want to share the key bits of information. So obviously, many thinkers out there, they want to present themselves as being so rational, so wise. They know everything about reality, yes. They can boil down reality to a T, yes. Be wary of these thinkers. Anyone who's too confident, who knows too much, who thinks he knows too much, who knows everything, who knows exactly where the world is going, who doesn't account for chaos, randomness, for the unpredictable. You have to be wary of such thinkers because these thinkers, they're also dogmatic. They are dogmatists. They're also dogmatic in their thinking. And they are just like the radical atheists, just like the radical theologians, who are so set in their ways that they have stopped kind of thinking, we could say. And therefore, a better approach is to notice that we are idiots, yes? We are idiots, we are irrational. We are irrational creatures. Obviously, we have the capacity for reason. We are capable of rational thought. We can penetrate the workings of God. But then on another level, sometimes you have to kind of let go. You have to surrender to this kind of irrationality sometimes. Because this actually improves your life. You improve your mental health. You become more healthy. in body, in mind, in spirit, in soul. And so I think this is basically in general what Dean Burnett was getting at in his book, I think. So the world and our brains are more irrational than we like to admit, and a solution to cope with this fact is to learn the workings of our idiot brain and have more compassion for ourselves. This is key. We need compassion. We need to forgive ourselves for the sins we committed and move forward in life and keep on improving. So the key aspects of the brain, the key processes that Dean Burnett covers, is thinking, feeling and perceiving. And the first important fragment that I found was Dean's perspective on those who think in a conspirological way, so conspiracy theorists, yes? So such thinkers, I myself, I was a big conspiracy type thinker when I was younger. This started around, when did this start? 2014 maybe, 2015, I think. I was hooked on AJ, I was hooked on David Icke, I was hooked on other thinkers like him, like them, yes. Similar, type thinkers, similar thinkers in Poland. In general, yes, thinkers who are like this, I followed them. And what Dean said about these type of thinkers is that, yes, on one level they do perceive a greater array of patterns. So these brains are able to notice patterns in life and in reality. They are pattern recognition masters. But the problem with this type of thinking is that eventually these brains, because they notice so many patterns, they start to view everything as a conspiracy. And this is a problem because when you start viewing everything as a conspiracy, this in turn causes you to view reality as fake, as not real, and you start to reject life. I think. This is what I noticed in my life and in my thinking process. This thinking process had an effect on how I lived my life and the action that I took. And this is not good. We want to experience life. God created us to live, yes, to experience His love for us. And this is only done by living, yes, not by thinking too much and becoming a conspiracy theorist, yes. Now, obviously, this is not to say that all conspiracy theorists are wrong and they're not right. They're right about many things. I mean, I would agree with them when it comes to their analysis of the power structure. They notice the evil force at work in the modern world. That's true, but then they also don't notice the good, and they start to reject everyone who doesn't fit into their worldview. They reject all institutions. They reject all history. They reject everything. They reject everything that makes us human. Really, I think. Paradoxically, this is kind of what I noticed with many conspiracy theorists. Yes. And also the major thing that they miss out on is the role of randomness, chance, and chaos. They don't account for this in their worldview. Sometimes things just happen. They're just random. It's chance. It's chaos. It's not orchestrated. Nature is random sometimes. Yes, we don't know the workings of nature. We don't know exactly how the universe works. So to be so arrogant and to think that you know it all is bad, yes. So this is the first point that Dean Burnett made that I remembered, and so I included it in my article. Yes. The next bit of information is about the standardized IQ test. Now, in the past, I thought that the IQ test was a brilliant way of measuring intelligence, but now I've changed my views. I don't think it actually is. Because there are many forms of intelligence. This intelligence that is only kind of mathematical and logical in its approach. This is just one type of intelligence. There's musical intelligence, there's artistic intelligence, there's emotional intelligence, there are many different types of intelligence. Yes, many different forms that intelligence takes. And so this standardized IQ test created in the West, which is then used to kind of judge other people, other nations, other parts of the world, and to subtly denigrate them. It's wrong, yes. So, and here, yes, I agree with Dean Burnett. I know this is a liberal, kind of a more liberal perspective, but I'm approaching this liberal perspective more and more on many issues. I agree with the liberals on, in some cases, and here again, I think he is right. The standardized IQ test is not a measure of intelligence, yes, of all types of intelligence. But yes, now I don't really talk about the brain itself, yes. So now this is where things get juicy, yes. Things get very interesting, and the most important sections, I think, dealt with vision. So when Dean Burnett started talking about vision, I started to pay attention a bit more. I was like, okay, this is key, because vision is key. I think vision is key, and he begins this with a reference to the Aristotle Illusion. So I didn't know about this at all. And what the Aristotle Illusion is this. So if we picture ourselves crossing our fingers like this, I mean, I can't do it properly. It should be more like this, I think, if you can see. So if we do this and we hold a marble in between the fingers, and then close our eyes, it will actually feel like two objects, because, as he explains, there is no direct communication between touch processing, the somatosensory cortex, and the finger-moving motor cortex. And this is a paradox, yes, of the workings of our brain. This is like an error of some sort. Something strange is going on, yes. So I just put this down here. I just wrote this down here for the viewers, but perhaps to ponder upon it. I'm still kind of thinking about this. I don't know how to interpret this. I don't know if there's anything behind it. Maybe there's nothing important really there, but I thought it was important to include here. So yes, this wasn't really meaningful for me, but I wanted to include it. And I tried to do this with a marble. Well, I don't have a marble, well, with a pen or something, but I didn't really notice anything. Perhaps I was doing it wrong. But anyway, let's move on. But so now I want to talk about what was meaningful for me when it comes to the visual processing system. So this was the best part, because the fact that Dean talked about this, it's like, oh yes, finally, I found some evidence out there that corroborates what I think, yes, that matches my style of thinking. So what Dean mentioned was how when we look at things outside our perception, or part of our perception, if we look at things in reality, so for example this wall here, I'm looking at a white wall right now, and sometimes our visual processing system, our visual cortex, this is my interpretation, I might be wrong, but our visual cortex, it kind of perhaps it projects a faint, not image, but a pattern that is similar to an object that we know of. And in my case, sometimes it's a cross, it's the face of Jesus. And Dean mentioned this in his book, that many people, they see the same thing. Yes, so they look at a wall, they see kind of like a faint outline of a cross somewhere, because the particular, in this case, for example, the particular arrangement of paint has been painted such that a cross appears. Yes, if we focus really closely. We can think also of a piece of wood. So sometimes if we just look at a random piece of wood, we'll notice kind of like a faint outline of like a cross, kind of, or if we look on a stone, yes. So this is very subtle. It happens randomly to me sometimes. I remember it happened when I was running on a treadmill once. I was running and then I looked at the wall and then I kind of noticed suddenly a cross, yes, a cross in the wall, outlined in the wall via the paint, via the white paint. So this made me really think, and I guess this is a really philosophical issue because it's linked to the idea of whether you are an idealist or a realist. So is this outside of reality, or is this kind of dependent on your vision, and therefore it means that philosophy, or your view of philosophy, is more idealistic? Yes, you're more of an idealist. You think that objects depend on our perception, and not the other way around, that we depend on objects. Obviously, this is the Kantian distinction, yes? And this is the main debate, I guess, in philosophy, idealism versus realism in philosophy. Perhaps I didn't explain it correctly, so let's see what AI has to say. So idealism and realism are opposing philosophical views regarding the nature of reality. Idealism proposes that reality is fundamentally mental, exactly, constructed by consciousness or ideas, whereas realism asserts that an objective physical reality exists independently of our minds. Okay, so this is a much brilliant explanation. Yes, I explained it in a bad way. So yes, I mean, when I was younger, I was definitely more of a realist. I believed in the fact that we are dependent on the outside, on physical reality, and that physical reality is independent of our minds, yes? There's like a divorce there, there's a gap. But as I get older, perhaps I'm becoming more of an idealist. I noticed that we can shape our reality through our thoughts, our mental patterns, how we think, and we can improve our lives by thinking in an idealistic way. So will this debate ever be resolved? I don't think so. There's so many arguments to support idealism, and there's so many arguments that support realism. Yes, it's difficult. But anyway, moving on. Another key observation made by Burnett is how our eyes work. Yes, so this is easier to notice. So when you move your eyes from side to side, you'll notice that it's not actually smooth. If you really pay attention, you notice that your eyes move in jerks, and not smoothly, yes, in one go. And what Dean wrote in his book is that these jerks are in fact a series of images that get combined into one continuous image by the brain. So it's kind of like a video, yes, or a cinema, like a movie, yes, in the past, a film or a video, or even now, yes. If we analyze kind of a video cassette, an old video cassette, we can see that the video is split into sections, yes, but combined, these sections create a continuous image or film. So this made me think as well. This was a nice kind of thought experiment or observation, and it made me think about vision. The next key point I thought that Dean Burnett made is our visual information, and how this visual information is related to the visual cortex. So Dean explained that it occurs via the occipital lobe. I don't know how to pronounce it correctly. Occipital occipital lobe, at the back of the brain. So this lobe exists at the back, and it connects the visual cortex to the brain. Yes. Let's check anyway. Maybe I'm explaining things incorrectly here. So the occipital lobe is the smallest of the four main paired lobes in the human brain, located at the rearmost posterior portion of the cerebral cortex, specifically above the cerebellum and under the occipital bone. Its main function is processing visual information received from the retina and optic nerve. Okay, yes. Specifically above the... Yes, so it links, yes? It links visual information received from the retina to the brain, yes? And what did Dean then say about this occipital lobe? He said that when this occipital lobe is activated, we see stars in our eyes. And this has happened so many times in my life when I'm lifting weights. When I push myself a bit more, ever so slightly, because I want to lift a bit more, for example, then sometimes I have this weird kind of sensation where I feel like I'm fainting, but I'm not. I'm not actually fainting, but I see stars in my eyes, yes? And this is like a weird sensation. It's pleasant as well, but it's a weird sensation. And my interpretation of this phenomenon is that it's kind of like a confirmation of our visual system being perhaps updated and improved in terms of resolution, yes? This is how I interpret this process, yes, that occurs. The fact that we see stars in our eyes, and they come little stars, yes? So all these phenomena, I apologize, phenomena, occurred in my life, and this is why the book was so brilliant. And I'm sure many of my viewers out there, you've probably experienced the same, yes. And it was, it's just made me think, like, okay, it just made me think. But anyway, I don't want to continue this video for too long, so now the next part of the video will be more about experiments, so famous experiments that show perhaps paradoxes when it comes to brain function, and why our brains tend to be irrational, and what we can learn ultimately from this, and how we can avoid perhaps a form of irrationality that is negative for us, yes. So one is the famous door study by Daniel Simmons and Daniel Levin. So this was a famous experiment that shows that we sometimes cannot notice a change in our environment. So what happens is there are two people. One person is the questioner, the investigator, the experimenter. The other is just a random stranger. And the experimenter, he asks the stranger about directions. Yes, he shows a map and he says, "Okay, I want to get to some place." Yes, as the person is watching the map. Yes, another person with a large door walks in between these two people, and the stranger usually doesn't notice that the experimenter was swapped with another person. So as the person with the door walks across, the experimenter switches positions with another experimenter and continues the investigation, the experiment. But what this experiment showed was that I think at least 60% of the time, the stranger didn't notice this change. Yes, so this shows how our brain is not so rational as we make it out to be. We don't notice everything that occurs in reality. And so not everyone has full access to the truth. We are all fallible, yes? We can't notice everything in reality, which is why we need to learn from everyone. Everyone can show us something that is missing, and therefore we shouldn't kind of export all of our thinking to one individual, to one person. And this is a mistake that I made a lot in my life. I recommend everyone not to do this. You need to expand your mind and appreciate all perspectives. Every person you meet in your life teaches you something. They solve a puzzle in your life. This is what I've noticed in my life. They solve something, and so you have to be open-minded and yes, appreciate all perspectives. The second one is the famous president's speech in the book The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat. So this book was written by the famous neuroscientist Oliver Sacks, and it reveals how people with mental deficiencies, so people who are a bit special, yes, in this case aphasic patients. So aphasic patients are patients with reduced capacity for language. They don't process language normally. So in this case, aphasic patients they can't when they hear language they can't understand it. Yes. But these aphasic patients in the experiment performed by Oliver Sacks, he noticed that these patients are better at noticing falsehood than patients with normal language processing capabilities, because these patients they focus on non-verbal cues, so on the movement of the face, of the eyes perhaps, etc. And they can tell when a person is lying or not. And this was in reference to Ronald Reagan, I believe. So they were watching a speech made by Ronald Reagan, and they started laughing because they knew he was lying. So I want to show you the president's speech. Oliver Sacks, meaning. Oliver Sacks observed aphasic patients laughing at a televised address by President Reagan. They find them insincere because, lacking the ability to understand words, they rely on vocal tone and body language to detect the falseness in his speech. So they noticed that Ronald Reagan was a falsehood. Yes, he was a charmer and an actor. And so these aphasic patients, they are brilliant human lie detectors. Yes, so just because they perhaps they don't process language correctly, it doesn't mean that they're stupid. Yes, they notice other things about reality, and they can help us. Yes. And then the last experiment is the Stanley Milgram Obedience Experiment. And this shows our unfortunate propensity to obey authority even when we know we should not. This is a classic experiment by Stanley Milgram. And yes, no, I don't need to talk any further about this. So I've nearly finished. Just I know it's a bit. Perhaps this video is a bit boring. I mean, I find all this information very fascinating. Definitely cleared up a lot of errors in my thinking and confirmed some of my intuitions. But let's finish this video now with a few more thoughts. So what else did Burnett share? So this is a bit more obvious, but he confirmed how, well, neuroscience confirms how our brain, it has this propensity to fall into groupthink and extreme views via the effect of group polarization. So people in groups who share a vision, they're involved with one another in a group setting, be it, organization, a nation, a corporation, etc. because they're part of the group, they end up expressing kind of more extreme views than when they are on their own. Yes, I guess it's due to peer pressure, and they don't wanna kind of upset the others. Yes, and what I loved was how Burnett suggests that this same process occurs at the government, corporate, and military level. So obviously these are also entities that function as a group, and I mean, to me, it's pretty obvious that these institutions, the government, corporate, and military institutions, yes, all these institutions, they can also do a lot of harm. When a government keeps getting bigger, then eventually it becomes parasitic, because the people who serve government, who are in government, they start to view government as an end in itself, yes, and so obviously, things can quickly fall into totalitarianism. Yes, we can quickly enter totalitarianism and tyranny. This is a brilliant insight by Burnett, I thought, and finally the last one is depression. So my views on depression are twofold, really. I mean, I think it does exist. It does exist, but at the same time, I think a lot of people, they don't try to improve their lives. They use depression as a cop out, as a excuse, perhaps, to put more effort in and to avoid being lazy. Personally, this is my opinion. I know maybe this might seem harsh, but I think depression is also of our own doing. We need to fight back. Yes. But then I thought about Dean's perspective, and thought, okay, maybe he's right as well, that sometimes people, they deny depression in order to avoid feeling sorry for the victims of depression. Yes, they have in their brain, they have this egocentric kind of self-defense that tells them, oh no, depression isn't real. Yeah, these people, they're just losers. Yes. They're just lazy. Yes, whatever. Ignore them. Yes, but when we think of some brilliant thinkers or artists in the past, a lot of them had depression. Yes, so Vincent van Gogh had depression. Vincent van Gogh, depression. Bipolar disorder. Okay, so he had some form of depression. Yes, but because of this depression, he created this beautiful art. Yes, so sometimes illness is a source of beauty, and this was definitely the case with Vincent van Gogh. I mean, Frédéric Chopin perhaps as well. He was ill. He had illness periods. Yes, Frédéric Chopin experienced severe recurring periods of depression, apathy, and anxiety throughout his life. Poor health, intense creative sensitivity, and exile from Poland. Yes, so we have to bear this in mind. Just because some people with depression, they genuinely have an illness. They are unfortunate. They've been struck by this illness. Perhaps God uses this illness for the greater good. Perhaps, yes. This is how we can interpret this. I'm sure there's many other brilliant artists and thinkers who had depression, and obviously because they have depression, they live shorter lives, but they are able to create brilliant works of art, etc. Depression is generally linked to a physical illness, obviously. So it makes us think about illness, depression in a new light. Depression and illness can be a source of great creative works. Yes. So yes, I mean, this book is brilliant book. It's comic as well. Dean Burnett, he's got a funny sense of humor. Here I've got the book. I recommend everyone to buy it. It's very accessible for the lay reader. You don't need to be an expert in neuroscience or whatever to understand it. it's another brilliant example of popular science and why we should all read popular science to improve our lives. So yes, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it shed some new light on various aspects of reality. And yes, like I just said, I recommend everyone to read this book, The Idiot Brain: Why Your Brain Gets Things Wrong and Why That's All Right. So yes, that's the end of my video. If you liked it, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It will help me grow the channel and spread, more vital information. I think all the information that I provide, it will really help people out there, I think, because we all go through specific processes and events that ultimately we learn from, and because we learn from it, we can share these experiences that will help others and prevent them from making the same mistake or the same mistakes. Yes. So yes, and if you like the video even more, perhaps consider donating at Buy Me a Coffee. So I'll provide a link in the description. I would greatly appreciate it. Any amount will do, because it will help me grow the channel and make this more of a full-time thing that I plan to do. But of course, it's all up to you. I'm not forcing anyone to donate. Once again, thank you for listening, and I wish you all the best. Take care.